Hi again, everyone. Welcome to the Chad Harberts Show, powered by the Sports Guys Iowa Network. We have this little break between the winter sports season and the full throttle start of high school track and field, soccer, golf, and tennis. It's a perfect time to talk about a topic that's been around high school sports for more than 100 years, and that's school consolidation. Did you know in the history of Iowa, there's been close to 1,000 former high schools? When schools consolidate, it's considered a new school, new mascot, new records, new everything. The previous separate schools no longer exist. Before BCLUW became BCLUW, it was Beeman, Conrad, Liscum, Union, Witten. 5 towns, 5 high schools. Now 5 former high schools, all in one, BCLUW. For 100 years, consolidation has been a rural problem. It's people leaving the smaller farm communities and going to the bigger cities. But now it's coming to the big cities. Waterloo West and Waterloo East are merging in 2028, 2029. Cedar Rapids is going to shrink from 3 high schools to 2 at some point in the near future. The Des Moines schools are not going to be able to sustain 5 high schools. I don't know when it's going to happen, but certainly as population decreases and people relocate out to the Waukees, the Ankeneys, the Johnstons, what have you, there's just no way they're going to be able to keep 5 complete high schools in the Des Moines area. So with all that in mind, we have 2 great guests today. A little bit later, we're going to talk with Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier sports editor Jim Nelson. He's a former West guy. He's a guy who's seen a lot of consolidation over the years. But first, though, we have the athletics director from Waterloo East, Tim Moses. He figures prominently into everything that's going on right now with the shared programs between West and East. And he's going to be one of those key guys over the next couple of years as this situation evolves. Here is Tim Moses. Timo, very good to see you again. How you been?
I've been doing well, Chad. Life, it's busy, although we're not in the fall or winter sports season. The spring season is just as busy as those other times of the year for me.
I'm sure it is. You've got a lot going on there at Waterloo East. And one of the reasons I want to talk to you is, first of all, let's get a little history, because you're a Waterloo guy through and through. You're an East grad. You're a UNI guy. Give me your history coming up sports-wise through Waterloo.
Yeah, I'm a Waterloo guy, man, through and through. Obviously born and raised right here in Waterloo, and being the youngest sibling of 5, all my older brothers all attended East High School during the late 60s, early 70s, during that era of the mythical state championships. So I had a front row seat to all of that, and so that inspired me, Chad, to want to follow their footsteps, which led me to athletics. And growing up in the Moses family, you really didn't have a chance or choice. You either was dribbling a basketball or throwing a football or catching a baseball. So my passion ended up being football and basketball. I dabbled a little bit in track and field, stay in shape. And that led me to East High School. I had a few injuries my senior year in high school, Chad, which kind of set me back a little bit. So I ended up going to the JUCO route and went to Ellsworth Community College, played football there for 2 seasons. My sophomore year, I was all-region. I was an all-region defensive back, and I wanted to come back home and play football at the University of Northern Iowa. And I did that and had 2 great seasons there under the coach of leadership and guidance of Dr. Victory Durham-Mudra. Yeah. And then that all led me, Chad, back here to Waterloo, where I became a teacher and taught for about 25 years in the classroom. And I always knew I wanted to do more and inspire kids on another level. So I got hired as the athletic director here at East High School just recently, 6 years ago. So that's my journey in a snapshot.
I don't know if you look, I got my old school UNI shirt on with the old logo for you, because you were on the 85 team, the first team that ever went to the 1AA playoffs and went to the national semifinals that year.
Yes, we did, Chad. Man, it's funny because we lost here's a story for you, Chad. My senior year at UNI, we're playing Drake, and they had a quarterback by the name of Gronkowski. Long story short, it's the dad of the guy just played quarterback in Iowa. It was his dad.
Nice.
And Drake beat us. Drake beat us the first game of the season. We had a new D coordinator who was experimenting with some coverages, and they just chewed the coverages up that we were in because we were playing man to man, and so we were locked up, and they kept making big plays up the middle and ended up beating us. And Chad, that woke us up and came back the next week, played Kansas State, knew our backs were against the wall, and we knew that we were a better team that we had showed against Drake. And so we went to K-State and ended up knocking K-State off. And from that point on, we ran off about 11 straight games, 10 or 11 straight games. After the Kansas State game, I remember getting on the plane, and as we were getting on the plane, we found out at that time that Kansas State fired their head coach to losing to a 1AA school.
Wow.
Yeah. So if I could add another story to that, Chad. So that senior year, we're playing for the conference championship, and it's the Battle of the Panthers. It's the Eastern Illinois Panthers versus the Northern Iowa Panthers. And at that time, the Eastern Illinois Panthers were led by Sean Payton, the head coach of the Denver Broncos. And it came down to the wire, and we ended up beating those guys. I was able to make a big play at the end of the game, and we ended up beating those guys. But I remember that game so well because I remember their locker room was right down the hallway from ours, and we were playing the Rocky theme song. We was ready to fight. The Eye of the Tiger. I was just saying, we were listening to, we had a blast, and we had the Eye of the Tiger. So yeah, it was fun. College at Northern Iowa was a great experience. Played with a lot of great guys.
And just funny, when you mentioned East Illinois and you mentioned Kansas State, one of the years that I was a sportscaster in Kansas City, I covered East Illinois at Kansas State, and East Illinois had this young quarterback who nobody ever heard of named Tony Romo.
Yeah,
they didn't win the game, but he was unstoppable. He was running and throwing the ball all over the field.
Yes, gunslinger. He was a gunslinger. Yeah.
Hey, Timo, this consolidation issue in the school systems in the state of Iowa has been going on for 100 years, but it's always been a rural schools problem, and it's coming to the big cities now. And it started, we didn't know at the time, I'm just a couple years younger than you are, but we didn't know this back in the late 80s. But this gradual decline in Waterloo, which has really hurt the east side even more than the west side. But Raft Packing closes in 85. John Deere starts moving operations out of state or out of the country. And over the years, over the last 40 or 50 years, Waterloo has seen this decline of what was, like you just said, Waterloo might have been the premier school district in the state when you were in school. You've got an East team that won 56 straight football games. That record still has never been broken. You got Dan Gable on the west side and all the great things he did. You've got Reggie Roby, you've got J.J. Moses, you've got Roger Kittleson, you've got all these great figures in East and West history. But this slide now has gone on for 40 years, and it's come to a head with West and East going to merge here in 28, 29. And first of all, as a guy who's been in the school district now for 30 years, you've seen quite a bit of this.
Yeah, Chad, as you mentioned, those factories, those industries, John Deere, Raft Packing, Chamberlain's, all those corporations, those blue-collar businesses that once thrived in Waterloo, the impact that had on the community to the point where we had to open another high school. And it was needed at that time. But over the course of the past 30 years, 40 years, whatever that number has been, there's been a huge decline in population in Waterloo. And I just feel, and I've always said, for me, that's reason to the numbers that we have at East High School, the declining numbers that we've had at East High School. And I just feel like we're behind in this move. This move possibly could have been made 20 years ago. I know it has been a conversation for maybe about 20 years. So to see the leadership come in through Dr. Smith to move Waterloo high schools in the direction of combining and consolidating programs and buildings, students, I just think that the timing couldn't be better for this to happen. And I'm just excited about it. I think that there's great things that's going to come about from that down the road, long term. And I'm excited for the city of Waterloo and the students and kids. You have a CTE program over at the new high school that offers careers along with your general education for students to be a part of. I just think that it's a win-win overall for the city of Waterloo. And with all that being said, that river has divided Waterloo for over 100 years. And you've had the haves and you have the people that have been less fortunate. And I just think it's time for us to come together as a city to show our strength as one high school.
And Timo, and I love that. And I know you've been a champion of this. Every time I've talked to you, you're excited about Waterloo United and you're excited about the possibilities. And I want to get to that in just a second about what your vision is going forward. But when schools consolidate, and we've seen this in Gladbrook Rhinebeck and Appleton Parkersburg and BCLUW, and it's going to happen. It happened with Waterloo Central. Those schools are considered, they're former schools. They no longer exist, including the records and the archives and those things and those achievements. It's like they never happened. And when you think about the rich history of Waterloo East and Waterloo West, purely from an athletic standpoint, that really concerns me because there is a lot of great teams and great coaches and great individuals that have gone through those two schools. And I'm afraid that in 3 years, when these schools merge, those histories are going to be eventually lost forever. And that does concern me.
Yeah. One of the things with the new high school, there's a part of the building that is called the Hall of Pride. As you enter the athletic side of the building facilities, there's an entryway that will highlight all these accomplishments, all these great people that were not only a part of East and West, but Central High School as well. So those things will all be kept alive in this new building because, like you just said, Chad, we don't want to lose that history. We want that history that was created to bridge the new high school with the past. So those things won't be forgotten about. If nothing more, they will be celebrated more because now people from both sides of the river could see all the great things that was done at both East and West High School. And I think that's going to be motivation for our student athletes. I think that's going to be motivation for our coaches because when you see that type of success, when you see Don Perkins or Forey Smith or Reese Wilson or Larry Martin, all these guys that played in the early 70s at West High. When you see that the Jerry Moseses, the Reggie Rogan, when you see all that history combined and you're walking past all that greatness every day, man, as an athlete, how can you not get excited? How could you not get excited if you're a volleyball player and you walking by and a tribute to Haley Eckerman or a Sahara Williams or Hallie Pope, all these great athletes that have just recent, Kyvan Gatsis. How could you not get excited about that type of history when you're walking past it every day?
And that's great. And that's what I want to hear because I don't want to see it get lost. I lived in Waterloo briefly as a kid before we moved to Grundy Center, but I'm well versed in how rich the history is in Waterloo. And I don't want to see it get by the wayside because there's been just unbelievable achievements in those two schools. They go back, both these schools are over 100 years old right now.
Yes.
So they've been going at it for quite a while.
It's a long tradition. Like you said, I think just here recently, within the last couple of years, East High, I think it was opened in 1874. And so the history, that's a long time. Probably one of the older buildings in the state of Iowa. So those things are important. And as we continue to plan and figure out things and how things are going to look and these ideas that we're sharing with one another in terms of the layout of the building and what's going to be added and what's going to be included and how things are going to look and that we're talking about will be shown in this wall of pride or hall of pride entryway into the new high school. It's going to be the designs that we have been talking about when they do come to the forefront and people start to see them on a daily basis as they enter athletic events. You're probably going to get stuck looking through the history of the program. You might miss the game looking at all the history of the programs of East and West and Central High School. So it's going to be like the Dan Gable Museum. It's going to be so much history to be shared with the community and to celebrate those people that have been the pioneers and the people that came before us that we stand on the backs of to see those things and be able to say, man, that's pretty cool. Let's continue this.
Timo, I know you're so excited for Waterloo United. It means a lot. It's obviously necessary, but it's not easy. It comes with some challenges. You're merging two student bodies who have a long rivalry, even though it's not like it was when we were kids, because now kids from opposing high schools tend to play summer sports together or club sports together. They get to know each other growing up. Whereas back in the days, if you and I played against each other, it's the only time we saw each other was that one regular season game. And we thought, I don't like that guy because he goes to Waterloo East and I go to Grundy Center. But now they know each other better. So that's not there anymore. But still, you've got to merge these sports. You've got to merge all these coaches. And you know, it's not going to be good for every single coach. It's not going to be good for every single kid. It's going to be good for the majority of people. But it's great to talk about what United could be. And I think it's going to be fantastic, but certainly it's going to be a bit of a bumpy road to get there.
Chad, I agree with you 100%. But Chad, I feel like that those waters were tested back in the early 70s when they first started busing kids from the east side of Waterloo to West High. They didn't know whether or not those kids from the east side of Waterloo, the black athletes that came over from the east side of Waterloo, when they decided to bus those kids over to West High, they didn't know whether or not if it would work. But long story short, you have Kelly Ellis, Jimmy Frazier, Keelan Roberts, Fonda Sproles, you have the Timmy Klinghammers. You have all these great athletes that went over to West High that were East Waterloo, East Side boys. They had no issues with that concept of can we thrive and can we unite and become, or can we fit in at that time? Can we go over here and fit in? And I talked to Jimmy Frazier about this about 2 or 3 years ago. And Jimmy, I asked Jimmy that question. I said, Jimmy, did you have any issues when you went from the east side of Waterloo over to West High? And Jimmy said, man, those were the greatest experiences I'd ever had, not only on the athletic field, but even in the classroom, because it challenged him academically. And he said it was a great experience, had nothing, not one bad experience. So I just feel, and you alluded to it, Chad, and a lot of our kids today, they're playing together. They're playing on U teams and playing on 7-on-7 football team. They're playing together already. So if people say you're not going to get the opportunities, you're not going to get the opportunities to play. Nobody's going to, playing time is going to be cut. But in all reality, Chad, what this is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to build our programs and keep kids and develop kids with their age groups. Because right now at East High, we're having to play freshman kids at the varsity level, and we play a buzzsaw 4A program. When you talk about the Decors and Waverlys and Western Dubuques, we play Xaviers. We play some buzzsaws for 4A football. And now we don't have to play those young freshman kids on the varsity level. Now we can let them stay down and play with their talent level. And that we can do that same thing for sophomores. So truly, unless you are an exceptional athlete, when I say exceptional, you have to be exceptional. And otherwise, there's no point of bringing a kid up that's a freshman to play at that varsity level. And I talked to some of the coaches that coached back at East High in the early 70s, and they said, Tim, you never played varsity almost until you were seniors. And then you had a few guys that played as juniors, but for the majority part, unless you was a senior, you didn't play varsity football.
Yeah, I talked with Jim Nelson yesterday at the office, and he talked about Gaines didn't get called up until late in his sophomore year at West. He ends up being a Mr. Iowa basketball, but he spends the first 2 years playing sub-varsity.
Yes. Yeah. Anthony Thomas. No, those guys, Kerry Woods, those guys over at West High, you had to be an exceptional athlete in order to break that lineup. And when you got that type of talent that I just mentioned, of course those guys are going to play. But if you're not on that level, and I look at the blueprint of Cedar Falls, if you're a freshman or sophomore, you have to be an amazing talent. You have to be a Ross Pischbacher to play varsity at that as a sophomore. Otherwise, you play down with your age group and develop and get stronger, get in the weight room, get faster, get bigger. Otherwise, we're putting kids out there on the football field, and you can kill a kid's spirit by putting kids out there that are not ready to play at that level.
That's exactly right. We're getting closer every single day to this merger happening. Waterloo United has a principal now. The next step before the end of the year is athletics director. Are you the guy who could lead this thing forward?
Wow, Chad, you putting me on the spot.
Well, Timo, I think the world of you, and I know how much you champion this whole process. I know no matter what, you're going to be involved.
Yeah, Chad,
But
I would love to be the athletic director of the new high school. I'm just praying on it, and I put things in God's hand. If that's the door that he opens for me and the opportunity presents itself, I tell you what, you won't get anybody that's going to work any harder than I will to make sure that things are done right and kids get the recognition, coaches get the support that they need to be successful. And I would love that opportunity, especially being a Waterloo kid, just growing up and seeing East, West, Central, just growing up in that era when things were really good. I would love to be a part of that, bringing that type of pride and energy and tradition back to the new school and to the city of Waterloo.
Timo, I love the way you do things there at East. I love going over to East for games. Your coaches are amazing. I love talking to your kids. I'm excited for the opportunities that are coming. Because let's face it, the East Side has taken this whole hit the last 50 years a lot harder than the West Side. So this is a chance for East and West to come together. This is a chance for Waterloo to once again be very competitive at the 5A, the 4A level and the other sports, but 5A in football, 4A in basketball. This is the opportunity. And I hope that everybody there is going to seize that moment and make this all happen.
Yeah, I think that people are working very hard behind the scenes. I think from the district standpoint to hiring Zach O'Brien as new principal, I think the community wants the best Waterloo. So I think the community is rallying behind the idea now that it's going to become one high school. I think when you get the support of the community, the buy-in back from the community in terms of attending games and events and packing the gyms, I just think that everybody's now on board and they're hoping and praying for great things to happen for the Waterloo United High School.
It's coming fast. And Timo, I love you, man. I really do. You always treat me so well, and you've always been so good to us when we come over to cover games. And sincerely, I hope you're the guy, and I wish you the very best of this whole process, because I know you might make it look easy, but it's not going to be easy.
It's not easy. No, it's definitely not. Guy once told me that it's like turning a cruise ship around. So I can picture that. And so it's tough, Chad. It's tough. But again, my passion for kids and students in Waterloo, it burns pretty deep. And I had friends, some of my good friends, Dave Koontz, Jeff Dodson, Clark Burrows, some of my best, Brad Turner, John Trober, some of my best friends, not to mention those guys, but the Liz Jacobys, the Allison Cutlers, some of my best friends that I made at Grant School during the Bridgeway Project when they busted kids over from the West Side. Some of my best friends became West Side people. I happen to be married to a Warhawk, by the way. So I just bleed Waterloo. I just bleed Waterloo, and I always want the best for this city.
Timo, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know we're going to talk again real soon.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate you so much, buddy.
Thanks, Timo. Take care.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too.